Well, if everybody wants to come in, we can get ready for our next panel, our next discussion about Quantum Valley and quantum and Canada and all the other issues and so on that we've been exploring so far this morning with our distinguished guests. As a way of preparing for that panel, I'm going to say a few words about where Hudson Institute sits with regard to this overall project of the quantum revolution, of quantum, and where this sits as the advanced technology of the 21st century. And I think it's important always to bear in mind that the key here to this quantum revolution that we're discussing is the radically different nature by which quantum computers operate and process compared to digital computers. I'm not going to walk you through one of the YouTube videos that you can see online about what's a quantum computer, and I'm not going to try and explain quantum computer for babies. I don't think you need anything quite as basic as that. But just bear in mind, the big difference is that whereas a digital computer, since its inception, has always depended upon processing all information in bits that are either ones or zeros, a quantum bit, a qubit, can be a 1 and 0 at the same time. So what this means is you have an exponentially faster growth in the processing power because you're eliminating more and more operations that the computer has to do in order to make a calculation. That's what gives us it's almost unimaginable power, especially as quantum computers begin to grow in terms of their capacity and their ability, and grow in ways that are hard to forecast. Particularly once, this is the other next big breakthrough, once you start building one quantum computer, then you can use that quantum computer to start building other quantum computers and to streamline designs and find shortcuts around the technological limits that exist right now. So where we are right now in the US is that we find ourselves in a quantum technology frontier which is heavily dominated by I'm going to call them our usual suspects, by the big IT giants, Intel, IBM. This is IBM's quantum computer, as a matter of fact, that they're working on currently. All engaged in the race to develop a quantum computer that delivers what they call now quantum advantage. In other words, building a computer using quantum technology, using entangled qubits that will enable you to solve problems that would be too hard for a digital computer, even the fastest supercomputers. Right now, the federal government, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, is beginning to get its focus on ways in which winning this quantum computer race is going to be crucial for the future. Thinking ahead to that moment, Q-Day, we talked about that in the morning session, in which you have a quantum prime computer that is ready to crack existing public encryption systems by being able to factorize those big subprime numbers that RSA and ECC cryptography systems are built on. But what's important to keep in mind here is that from the point of view of where the US is and has been for some time, that the key leadership is in the hands of the big IT companies. They're the ones that the federal government leans to. They're the ones who kind of occupy main space in this direction. Now, at the same time, there's also a recognition that the breakthroughs that are involved here are going to have an enormous impact on the future of other technologies. In other words, quantum computing is not just going to function within quantum technology sphere. It's going to have a big impact, for example, on artificial intelligence. Don't forget, artificial intelligence applications depend upon huge infusions of data, enormous infusions of data. And if that data is unsecure, if that data is corrupted, if there are problems with the use of that data or the networks that allow access to that data, then you're going to have big problems in AI. And when you think about the role that AI, for example, will play with driverless cars, the idea of the kind of coordinated mega ballet that's going to be required to maintain cities and systems depending upon the integration of driverless cars, if the data on which those cars operate and their AI-driven systems operate is corrupted, is hacked into, is altered in malign ways, we could have a major crisis, a major chaos on our hands in that regard. The Internet of Things, same thing. Again, Internet of Things is going to depend heavily upon the use of AI by means of which to carry out the key applications that make the Internet of Things a reality. There again, protection of data, encryption of data, being able to depend upon data which is authentic as well as secure is going to be key. And quantum technology is going to be a key aspect to driving that and moving that process forward. Now, what you have to understand too is that the effort that we're having, that was underway in the US or in Canada, has to be placed in that international perspective. This is a slide very much closely related to the one that Ian Stewart showed you earlier about where the world was in terms of investment into quantum technology as of 2015, which is about the time in which I started to get involved in the quantum technology area and began thinking about it as a matter of national policy as well as technology policy. And the point about this is that at that point in 2015, as you can see from the graphics that are involved here, that the countries that were taking the lead in this in terms of investment in area around the world, you had the European Union, you had the United States, you had China, Germany, Britain, Canada, and Australia, Switzerland, and Japan, and so on, all involved in ways in which to make this breakthrough technology possible, looking for ways in which to leverage advantage from their own information technology industries, as well as government efforts, in order to get ahead of this growing technology. Now, what I have to tell you is this is in 2015. The numbers have changed a lot for a lot of countries. Unfortunately, not so much for the United States. But for other countries, they've changed dramatically. One of those countries, for example, in which things have changed dramatically is China. China has, in the last year or two, has begun a massive investment in this area. They already have a massive investment in artificial intelligence and are very much aware of the degree to which quantum technology will have an impact on AI and on its future as well. But we have the investment, for example, in China's case of the launching of a quantum communication satellite in 2016, the Mucius project, in order to create that unhackable communication network, a first step in developing that kind of unhackable network. We also have the investment of $10 billion in developing a quantum research center in Hefei in China, a research center which will be involved in all aspects of quantum technology that we've been talking about, not just quantum computing, but quantum sensing, quantum communication, quantum metrology, all of which, by the way, too, in which the Hefei Center makes no bones about the fact that many of the applications they'll be working on and researching and developing are for the People's Liberation Army. This is one of the key aspects. The Chinese make no bones about the fact that they see the military applications, strategic applications of quantum technology as front and foremost, and the commercial technologies as a secondary part of that. Now, from that point of view, then when we look at where the US is and where China is, at a time in which their numbers were about equal, say about 4 years ago, now China is outspending us at about a rate of about 30 to 1. 30 to 1. Now, if the current bill in Congress passes, that number will change somewhat. That'll add an extra $1 billion, $1.25 billion to the pursuit of quantum technology in the US from the point of view of government funding. That's about the amount that private industry spends right now in the year. So it's almost like matching funds with where private industry is in the quantum computing area. It still trails a lot from where China is in this process. So where can the US look for ways in which to help to leverage the advantages it does have in this area? Well, that's what the Quantum Alliance Initiative is all about here at Hudson. And what we're saying is the way to leverage this is not by necessarily spending more, because in this, as in any kind of technological area, just spending more money doesn't mean you get a better output. It doesn't happen like that. The Chinese are going to find that out, I think, pretty quickly, actually. But still, those sorts of resources, that kind of commitment of capital and human capital into financial and human capital into this is bound to yield some amazing results. But what we can leverage from the point of view of where Hudson is and of the Quantum Alliance Initiative, where we can leverage is our relationship with our allies. Our allies who just happen to be key players in the quantum technology arena. You've just been hearing about them all morning, and you'll be hearing more this afternoon. One of them is Canada. Canada, this is IQC's quantum computer here, in which, as you've seen, the kind of amazing work they're doing across the quantum spectrum, not just in quantum computing, as IBM and Intel and Google are doing, but in a whole range of other technologies, which can be hugely important for securing the quantum technology future. Another of those allies is Australia, where the Australian government has invested over $1 billion Australian in the quantum technology sector, putting it into resources such as the University of New South Wales, where Dr. Michelle Simmons has been doing some amazing things with regard to a silicon-based quantum computer, basically computer chips using silicon, right? The classic material for the digital age, but making it into the indispensable material for the quantum age as well. And Dr. Simmons' work at the University of New South Wales has earned her international plaudits. She was, in fact, named Australian of the Year last year. Doesn't happen very often to quantum scientists, but that's how important she's become in the field and in this direction. And I was lucky enough and privileged enough to have a meeting with her when she was here in DC just a couple of weeks ago to talk to her about work that we're doing here at Hudson, of which she was very interested. And my idea, which was the idea of moving the Five Eyes network of Australia, Canada, Great Britain, and New Zealand, and the United States forward into the forefront of an information sharing and technology sharing and resource sharing network in regard to quantum technology. He was very supportive about that. And we're looking forward to her joining us on the advisory board for the Quantum Alliance Initiative as well. That's the story in Australia. Then you look at Britain. It was back in 2012 when a lot of people who worked in the cybersecurity area didn't even know what the word quantum meant. It was back in 2012 that the British government identified quantum as one of the cutting-edge technologies to which government resources and a research and development focus needed to be directed if Britain was going to continue to have a future in the high-tech industry and high-tech environment. And in 2013, they began setting up the architecture for government and private investment into this area, creating the equivalent of Canada's superclusters, the quantum centers of excellence, in which are devoted to aspects of quantum technology research at universities such as the University of Glasgow and and at Oxford University. This is the quantum computer, the ion trap quantum computer with which Oxford is working in conjunction with IBM in this direction. So private companies understand the importance of partnership with our allies and with the universities and research base that they have established there. What the Hudson's Quantum Alliance Initiative is attempting to do is to broaden that area of cooperation, to expand it, to make it more systematic at a government-to-government level and a government-to-private to university level as part of the quantum winning and securing the future for the quantum revolution. Then when we come to New Zealand, also a member of the Five Eyes network. New Zealand is actually emerged as one of the leading research areas in the area of quantum optics. Quantum optics will give a new level of accuracy in terms of being able to see into space, to identify objects, a whole range of technologies that are underway and are being worked at by scientists at New Zealand. All areas in which the US could use a lot of cooperation, could provide research and support here by teaming up with New Zealand and with the work that's being done in New Zealand. This could be an important future, an important direction for US universities and US government and government agencies by tapping into the resources there that New Zealand has already set up. So there you've got it. I mean, think about it. Great Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. What a powerful, talk about supercluster. Talk about a supercluster of talent and resources and knowledge and expertise that could be put to use by working together across a broad-based, private as well as public sector network in this direction. This is what Hudson's Quantum Alliance Initiative is about. And in the next few weeks, we'll be coming out with our first report on Five Eyes on Quantum, which I will hope all of you will be able to get access to and have a chance to read, which lays out our vision as to how such a network could work and how we could build upon the Five Eyes Intelligence Network, which is already in place and already thinking in terms of quantum technology and how to widen the dialogue, how to expand the number of players, and how to gain even more synergy out of that interconnectivity. Because that is becoming the key, I think, to winning the quantum race is connectivity and building the links and the ties that'll make that possible. Then when we look, I've got to go flip back again. No, I'm sorry. My apologies. I leaned too heavily on that. Is that where we started? Yes. Let me go. European Union also. Let's not forget about that. Their $1 billion flagship initiative that they've launched in terms of quantum technology as well. Again, within a coherent, well thought out strategy of how to target and focus research in key areas and how to partner. For example, EU and Japan, which is doing amazing things in the area of quantum communication with the work that's being done in Japan there. As Ian Stewart pointed out, you have the Canadian government reaching out to other countries and other governments, and yet the link between us, our government, and the Canadian government and these other governments hasn't really solidified, really hasn't taken shape yet in this kind of way. And again, what interesting levels of synergy, what interesting levels of connectivity can flow from that connection and that development. And I think what becomes possible to foresee in thinking about Five Eyes and quantum is the kind of achievement, the kind of both diplomatic and geopolitical, but also scientific and technological breakthroughs that came with the ways in which the Five Eyes had in their very origin that wartime alliance between the United States, Franklin Roosevelt, Great Britain, Winston Churchill, Mackenzie King, Prime Minister of Canada. And when you think about the ways in which it was possible to pool that talent and that scientific talent and those resources, development of the atomic bomb that ended World War II and that sustained deterrence through the Cold War, the breakthroughs that have come in other areas of science and technology by the cooperation between the Five Eyes network, that such a future may await us all with regard to cooperation in quantum technology through that Five Eyes direction. And then the last aspect of the Quantum Alliance Initiative that we are currently working on and that I invite you to think about and to participate and to follow. And that is that the Quantum Alliance Initiative is developing and working with a number of companies and labs across the country and across the world to develop a global standard for quantum key distribution and quantum random numbers generator. We talked about that with Mike and Ray during the morning panel. We are in the process of developing precisely that type of standard that will make possible the growth of both the technical work in those two critical areas for quantum communication and creating unhackable networks of the future and data network future, but also at the same time that will provide a means by which commercial opportunities will come in this kind of an area by establishing a firm foundation in terms of standards and protocols for emerging technology like this. We feel very confident that this will help to stimulate more research, more investment, and more development in this area for the future and for the quantum future that goes with it. And this, too, is also part of what we have taken on as our mission here at Hudson, and that we're working on in making this future. But for today, for our focus for today, it's Canada. And so what I'd like to do is to have you all welcome our next panelists and part of our discussion that would go with it, Michael Duchesne, Joseph Emerson, and also Ian Klugman. If you gentlemen could join us on the podium.